Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're taking a deep dive into something pretty fascinating, TATANKA.
TATANKA.
They're this orchestra, well, not just an orchestra, that's trying to make Portugal like a global music hub.
Right.
And they're doing it by blending all these different musical traditions together, you know?
Yeah. Indigenous music, folk, even classical.
Exactly. Ambitious, right? So we dug into their website. All this info's from there, by the way, published February 18th. And we're going to try to figure out what they're all about. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
what's the WHY behind all of this? What kind of impact are they hoping to have? And is it actually working?
Well, one thing that jumps out is how they describe themselves.
Oh, yeah.
They call themselves a movement, not just an orchestra.
Hmm.
That really struck me. Like, they want to do something much bigger than just playing music.
A movement, huh? So not just concerts, but what, like changing culture?
Yeah, they literally talk about starting a cultural renaissance in Portugal.
Wow. Okay. That's a lot to unpack. So where do they even begin with something like that?
Well, it seems like they're really banking on Portugal's history.
Okay. How so?
Well, the country's got this unique mix of European, African-American influences, right? And TATANKA thinks that makes Portugal like the perfect place to blend all these different musical styles. Like their music can connect with people on a really deep level because of it.
I see. So like building on traditions, but with global influences too.
Yeah, exactly. Like, fado music.
Oh, of course. Everyone loves fado. Beautiful, melancholic.
Right. It's really cherished in Portugal. All about storytelling.
Yeah.
But TATANKA, they're kind of looking beyond that. Like they want to honor those traditions, but also create something new,
Hmm.
something that reflects the world we live in now where everything's connected.
Okay, so pushing boundaries a bit.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. Instead of just your typical violins and cellos,
Yeah.
they've got instruments like the kora, a Lakota flute, even Japanese taiko drums.
Whoa, that's quite the mix. It sounds amazing in theory, but, I gotta wonder, how does it actually sound? Can you really blend all that and have it, actually be good music?
Yeah, that's the big question, right?
Right,
Like,
it can't just be about good intentions.
absolutely. And, speaking of good intentions,
Yeah.
they've got this story on their website about a young woman, Yara.
Okay.
She's a kora player, a refugee from Mauritania, actually. And get this, she was discovered busking, like playing on the street in Lisbon.
No way. Really? That's amazing.
Yeah, and they invited her to join the orchestra.
Wow. That's a pretty incredible story.
It is. But imagine, being plucked from the street and suddenly you're in this world-class orchestra.
Yeah, I bet that was intimidating.
Right. But she found her place.
Yeah.
And now her story's like a big part of how they talk about inclusion.
That's awesome. But how does one story, like, connect to their bigger goals?
Well, think about it. The kora,
Yeah.
it's not exactly a common orchestra instrument.
Right.
So by including it, they're kind of making a statement, about breaking down musical barriers. It's like a little example of what they're trying to do on a larger scale.
Yeah.
Taking different traditions and weaving them all together.
Right. So it's not just bringing people together, it's bringing musical worlds together.
Exactly.
But I gotta say,
Yeah.
global music movement, cultural renaissance, those are some seriously big goals.
Totally. I mean,
Right.
how realistic is all of this? Right?
Exactly. So what do they say about how they're gonna, actually pull it off?
Well, they talked a lot about, getting people on board.
Mm.
Artists, institutions, policymakers, they know they need support.
Well, yeah. And what about funding? I mean, something like this has got to cost a fortune, right?
Right. But they seem to get that. They mention working with cultural institutions, policymakers.
Yeah.
Like, they're definitely looking for partners to make it all happen.
Makes sense. You can't do it alone.
Nope. And, they're not naive about needing attention either. They mention wanting coverage from, places like BBC, Al Jazeera.
Oh, wow. Aiming high, huh?
Yeah. They know media is important. Got to reach people, right?
True. But at the end of the day, none of that matters if the music itself isn't good.
You're absolutely right.
Right. It can't just be a gimmick.
No, it has to actually move people.
Exactly. So I'm dying to know, what does this revolution in sound actually sound like?
Yeah, me too. But, there's something else that's really standing out to me.
What's that? What's that?
It's like this interesting tension between tradition and innovation.
Yeah.
Portugal, they're really good at kind of embracing both.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Like, look at fado, right? It's evolved over time, but it's still fado. It's still got that Portuguese soul.
Right.
So TATANKA, it's almost like they're taking a cue from that.
Right.
Like, how can we build on something that people already love, but give it this new energy?
I like that. So it's not just mixing styles together. It's more like a conversation between cultures.
Yeah, exactly. It's about finding those points where things connect, you know, and pushing the boundaries of what music can even be.
Okay, I'm with you. But do you think maybe, I don't know, some people who love like really traditional orchestral music could be turned off by this?
Oh, for sure. Some people might feel like it's, I don't know, diluting the purity or something.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think maybe that's a limited way of looking at it, you
Yeah.
know, like what an orchestra can actually be.
So you're saying it's not just about preserving the past, it's about redefining what orchestral music even is.
Exactly. And think about the instruments they're using.
Yeah.
Like the kora, right? It brings in these whole different textures, rhythms, scales.
Right.
You couldn't get that with just your, traditional European instruments. It just adds so much.
This whole musical tapestry idea, I love it. But, I have to ask,
Yeah.
what about the listener, right? Someone who maybe's never heard a Lakota flute or a kora, why should they care about this?
That's a great question. I think it comes down to the power of music, right?
Yeah.
It can go beyond borders, beyond language. Like
Yeah.
when you hear something that really moves you, it doesn't matter if you understand the words or even know what instruments are being played.
It's like a universal language, right? Something we all connect to.
Exactly. And that's what TATANKA is doing, I think. They're taking all these different threads from all these different places and weaving them together into this universal language. Like they're inviting you to open your ears to something new,
Yeah,
to hear the beauty in all this diversity.
I see. Yeah. And they're definitely thinking big picture, right? They mention wanting to work with like BBC, NPR, Al Jazeera.
Oh, yeah. They're going for it.
That's a lot of reach.
It is. I mean, getting that kind of attention, that could really help them take off. It could make this global music movement thing actually happen,
Yeah. But something tells me it takes more than just getting the word out.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It can't just be about exposure, right? It's got to be about genuine exchange.
What do you mean?
Well, TATANKA, they're like cultural ambassadors in a way.
Yep.
And to really succeed, they need to build trust, understanding, between different communities.
So it's almost like they need to be diplomats as much as musicians.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Because they're dealing with some really complex stuff, appropriation, representation, power dynamics.
Yeah.
It's not enough to just throw a bunch of different musicians together. You got to be sensitive, respectful.
It sounds like they're walking a tightrope.
Right.
Yeah.
Like they need to be bold, but they can't step on anyone's toes.
Exactly.
It's a tough balance. And
Yeah.
if they mess it up, the whole thing could fall apart.
Yeah, you're right. We've been talking about all these challenges, funding, support. But maybe this cultural piece, maybe that's the biggest hurdle of all.
It might be. It's
Yeah.
a really interesting question, What's the right way to do cultural exchange in art? How do you honor traditions but also create something new? How do you make sure everyone's voice is heard?
Those are big questions. But, we've been focusing on the challenges a lot. Let's go back to the music itself for a second.
Okay.
You said earlier it can't just be a novelty, right?
Right.
So what would make TATANKA's music, like, truly successful, in your opinion?
I mean, besides just sounding good, right?
Poor.
It has to feel real,
Mm,
meaningful, not forced.
yeah.
It has to come from a place of real connection, collaboration.
So not just technical skill, but like a spirit.
Yeah, like a shared humanity,
Yeah.
If they can capture that, that's when it becomes something really special.
So you're saying TATANKA's music, it could be more than just entertainment. Like it could actually change things.
I think so. Music's always had that power, right? To bring people together, to inspire them. And TATANKA, they seem to understand that. They're using it in a really intentional way.
Okay, I like that. Now, we talked about this earlier, but the economic side of things.
Right.
Like how TATANKA could help Portugal's economy, especially in the arts.
Yeah.
Do you think maybe that focus, like on the money side, could ever clash with their artistic goals?
That's a really good question. It's something a lot of arts organizations struggle with, Like, how do you get the money you need without compromising what you believe in?
Right, right. So how can they, keep their vision pure, but also, pay the bills?
Well, their website doesn't really get into the nitty-gritty of their finances. But they talk a lot about collaboration. Like, they want to build a network of support from both public and private sources.
So it's like they're creating an ecosystem where both the art and the money can thrive.
Yeah, exactly. That's the dream, right?
Yeah.
To find that balance. And if they can pull it off, that'll be a huge part of their success. But, let's shift gears a bit. There's another really interesting part of their mission.
Okay, I'm listening. What is it? Okay, I'm listening. What is it?
Well, we've talked about Portugal, right?
Yeah.
But I think TATANKA, they're thinking even bigger. Like, they want to change how we think about music and culture globally.
Wow. Okay,
Yeah.
so like ripples spreading outward.
Yeah, exactly. And their website, they talk about how, people are kind of, I don't know, tired of the same old stuff.
Yeah, I get that.
Like the same genres, the same formulas. People want something real,
Yeah, yeah. Something with meaning.
Exactly. And TATANKA, they're tapping into that. Like, forget the labels. Let's just make something beautiful.
I love that. It's so true, though, right? Music gets put in these boxes: classical, world music, pop.
Right. And it's like, why? Why do we have to do that?
Yeah, it's limiting.
Exactly. And TATANKA's like, hey, we can do something different. They're reminding us that there's so much amazing music out there, but we might miss it if we stay in our little boxes.
Right, and it's not just about, finding something new. It's about hearing from people whose stories don't always get told.
Yeah, giving a platform to voices that are often marginalized, celebrating diversity.
I love that. It's such a powerful statement, especially now when the world feels so divided.
Totally. They're using music to, like, build bridges, remind us that we're all connected.
That's like those Music Without Borders movements, but taken even further.
Right.
But is it, I don't know, is it naive to think music can actually change things?
Maybe a little. I mean, TATANKA's not going to solve all the world's problems.
Right.
But I think they're onto something. People want to feel connected, They want meaning, and music can do that.
Yeah, totally. They also talk about, like, helping young Portuguese artists.
Oh, yeah. They want to do workshops, educational programs.
So it's not just about bringing in international talent. It's about supporting local artists, too.
Right. It's about building something that will last, creating a space where all these different musical traditions can come together and thrive.
So it's bigger than just the music itself. It's about legacy.
Exactly. And that legacy, it could go way beyond Portugal. Imagine orchestras everywhere embracing this global sound, indigenous and classical musicians collaborating like it's the most natural thing in the world.
Okay, I'm convinced. But what can we do,
Yeah.
As listeners, how can we support this kind of movement?
Well, their website, they have this call to action. They're asking everyone to join them. Artists, policymakers, anyone who cares about the arts. Like, come be a part of the conversation. Advocate for change. Support organizations that are, pushing boundaries.
It's a good reminder that we're not just, passive listeners. We can actually shape things.
Yeah, we can choose to support art that aligns with our values.
Yeah.
Art that challenges us, inspires us.
I love that. So open our ears, open our minds, and support the artists who are making this happen.
Exactly. So next time you listen to music, think about it. Where did this come from? Whose story is being told? And how can I help?
That's a great question to ask. And on that note, we're going to wrap up our deep dive into TATANKA.
Yeah, it's been a fascinating conversation.
I hope you all enjoyed it, and maybe you're even feeling a little inspired. Till next time, keep your ears open and your minds curious.